This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. So I will read out who I see on the call, and then if I miss anybody, please holler. And we have Rich Jackson, Paul Frieda, Jake Hannum, Jay Curran, Ken Anderson, Les Shelderup, Jeff Dreyer, Jim Ward, Gary Gunville, Len Sierra, Dennis Correa, and Chris O'Connor. Did I miss anybody? Okay, I was paying attention. So there may be a few more people that join us over the next few minutes. We don't really have anybody who's new, but we have a couple of people that we haven't spoken to for quite a long time. And so we may kick off with them, but we'll just see. So let me at least run down the whole list since there's nobody new and see who would like to talk tonight. Mr. Jackson, would you like any time tonight?
Doing fine, thank you, no.
Okay, and my apologies for copying you on that email stream. It was an accident on my part. Sorry about that. Paul Frieda, we know you need time because you generously donated it back last week to Cam. So we will definitely give you some time. Jake, do you need any time tonight?
Yes, if there's time.
We always have time for you. You know that, because you always have time for us. Jay Curran, any time for you tonight?
Yes.
Okay. Ken Anderson, time for you tonight?
Nope, I'm fine, thanks.
Okay. Les, would you like any time tonight?
Yes, just a few seconds.
No, you can have more than a few seconds. Jeff Dreyer, would you like some time tonight?
No, I'm good, thanks.
You sure? There was a little hesitation there, Mr. Dreyer.
Well, no, I have a speaking freely kind of subject to do, so maybe I'll wait for that.
Oh, well, you've got to wait another 3 years, another 3 weeks. So, well, let's see how we do.
Okay, yeah, if there's lots of time left over, sure.
Okay, we'll see how we do, and then I'll allow Mr. Jackson to determine whether we have to defer or we don't have to defer. I'll put it in the hands of Rich to decide. Jim Ward, you were going to give us a quick update?
Sure, and then I have basically, I think, just one question to put to the group.
Excellent. Gary, would you like any time?
I'm just listening tonight.
Okay, Len, any time for you?
Nothing new from me, Rick.
Okay, and Sylvester, how about you?
No, thank you. I'm listening also.
Okay. And Dennis Correa, any time for you?
No, Rick, thank you.
Hey, Dennis, did you get any of that rain today? We got a little rain down here.
I did. We just started our golf round this morning and got about 5 minutes of sprinkles, and it looked a lot more threatening than what we actually got. So.
Yeah, same down here. Exactly the same. Chris, I know you would like a little bit of time, so I'm giving you a check mark. And somebody just joined us on the telephone.
Rick, we're just walking in the gym here. How you doing?
Okay, Mr. Appler. Thank you for we know. We know you're number 3. Okay. Thanks. Enjoy your workout. Okay. So I'm gonna jump around a little bit today. And I want to start with if it's okay with you, Chris, I'd like to start with you because I really feel that Chris has some issues that I think we can really unpack here a little bit and maybe help him. And I want him to feel comfortable on this call, so he'll keep coming back, because we've asked him a couple of times to come on, and since we've got him here today, I don't want him to change his mind and leave quickly. So I know you've been on this call before, but not for quite a long time, Chris. And I didn't promise you, but I said there was a very strong likelihood that one of Paul Korn's patients would be on this call, and he is on the call. So that'll give you the opportunity to talk to Ken maybe a little bit. But why don't you fill us in on how you're doing, or give us your background a little bit, because I think some of the people might not know that, and then let's talk a little bit about treatment options.
All right. Well, my name is Chris O'Connor, and I was officially biopsied and diagnosed in 2016 in January. Before that, I had a high PSA for a little while. And I had done a 3T MRI, and then I did the biopsy, and came back Gleason 9. Scared the shit out of my oncologist. At the time, he wanted to have me do prostatectomy and full radiation. And from judging from what I read and where I saw all the trouble with my pathology, it was outside of the prostate already. And I know he knew that. So I opted to not have my prostate removed. I also opted not to do the full radiation. I went a natural route, and had some pretty good success for a couple years. Did pretty well, considering. But sometime in 17, my PSA started rising. Went from 40s up to 100 in the beginning of 18, and just kept rising. And it got up as high as 500. And by May of 2018, and at that point I had pretty extensive metastasis in my bones. I'm 54 years old now, and I met up with an oncologist local, MD Anderson, an affiliate, and where I was coming from, because I like to try to keep things as natural. And they put me on Lupron. Lupron actually drove my PSA down from 500 down to 4.9, which is the lowest it's ever been within 2 months. But within the next month, it started going right back up again. And by the end of September, going into October, they put me on Xtandi. They already had me on Xgeva. And I did a new bone scan in November. I had done one in May with extensive mets. I did a new one in November. And interestingly, I had a CT scan done both times too. And my CT scan in May had some pretty good lymph node action. And in November, that all receded down to almost gone. So that was good news. But the bone scan was, a little good, a little bad. Moving around to different parts of the body, looking like it was healing in other parts. But it got into me pretty good. But the problem was, when they did the bone scan, I was having problem with my hips in November, and my oncologist suggested I did radiation, palliative radiation for my hips, and I went for it. And when I went to the radiation oncologist, he felt that my right femur was in danger of fracturing because of a gray ring around the whole top of it. And he suggested strongly that I get a titanium rod inserted in there, which he said if I didn't do that before the radiation, it would be a bigger problem. I may not be able to do the surgery afterwards. And I chose to do that, and I had that done within a couple of days, and that was painful and difficult. And right after the surgery, as it started to heal from the surgery and try to rehab, the metastasis came back really hard on my hips. So I got in middle of November, I got in to do the irradiation in there, and it was 5 sessions. And by the 3rd session, I started feeling better. You know, I started feeling less pain. I couldn't walk. I was literally with a cane and crutches, and I was in bad shape. By the end of the 3rd session, going into the 4th session, I started to be able to move and maneuver, which was great. You know, by the 5th session, I was actually jumped off the gurney pretty much, you know, after the 5th session. So that all worked out pretty well. But I just been back and forth with pain in different parts of my body, you know, and I just had another bone scan done because I was having problems with my jaw and my neck and my right shoulder. And interestingly, the bone scan shows metastasis, new metastasis here in my humerus, up really high up by the shoulder, and some up top here. This is the shoulder that has the pain, my right shoulder, but my left shoulder has got quite a bit more metastasis shown. And then I have it in the sternum, parts of my skull. My PSA was going down again from a couple hundred down to 130, but it just bounced back up again to 200. I'm still on Lupron and Xtandi, and I'm trying to nail this oncologist down to why I'm still doing Lupron and Xtandi. You know, what is the benefit if it's not stopping PSA from going down? If it's not preventing the PSA from going down? And I get answers of, you know, we're not really sure exactly how it works, but it's synergy, you know, the synergy of it all with the 2 drugs, and you know, it's what's indicated and blah blah blah. So I'm concerned now. The pain I had in my right shoulder, luckily, was, and I say luckily, I have three tears. I have 2 tears, one in each muscle. Yeah, interspinalis, spinalis, spinalis, or whatever. I have supraspinatus, and then I have one torn labrum. So that's why I've been having such pain on my shoulder. So between my hips flaring up at times at night and my shoulder, I'm having trouble sleeping a lot. And I believe that's what's been affecting my neck and my shoulder and my jaw, because everything came out back clean with the imaging of my neck and my jaw. You know, so most likely just awkwardly sleeping and being in some rough positions. So I had the bone scan and the MRI done Tuesday and Wednesday. I got the results from my chiropractor, who's a friend of mine, who I had to forward it to also, but I've yet to hear from my oncologist, including today. And I wrote a note this morning again, just asking what's the protocol. Am I supposed to call you? Are you supposed to call me? Or am I supposed to have a meeting? You know, whatever, an appointment. And typically when I send an email, they respond, but I didn't even get a response today. So I get the feeling that she's over her head with what she's dealing with, and B, I'm just kind of fitting into the whatever the group protocol kind of says for my demographic, if that makes sense or not. So it's a little frustrating. It's kind of my story, I think. I'm sure there's a lot more, but.
So when Chris was with us on the Speaking Freely call last Thursday, and so when I heard some of this, and I've spoken with Chris before, but I never really got such a good picture as I did last week, I felt that we ought to bat around some options, and Chris ought to hear about some of the people who have comparable disease and what they're doing. And then when he mentioned that he was at an MD Anderson satellite facility, I said, well, you know what, you need to, and he's with a general medical oncologist because there aren't too many specialized GU med-oncs in the satellite facilities. I suggested that he speak to his doc and pull Korn onto the team as soon as he could. And that really, I wanted to connect him to you, Ken, First of all, because you're both a similar age, you got diagnosed at a similar age, you both got diagnosed metastatic, but your treatment path has been a little bit different to his. So why don't we kick off by introducing you and Chris to each other?
Well, okay. I'm using my tablet, so if I start cutting out, let me know and I'll switch to my cell phone.
Okay.
So where are you located, Chris? I guess that's the first question. What part of the country?
New Jersey.
New Jersey.
Yeah.
We did somewhat start about the same time. I'm a little bit older than you. I'm at the moment 58. The difference is that I did go after it probably much more aggressively, I think, than trying to take a natural path. My PSA, though, at the high was like 729. I was diagnosed in February, and your comment, your urologist was shocked when he found a Gleason 9. I can honestly tell you, I could see in the face of my urologist when he had to tell me he just about shit his pants. It was not something that was comfortable for him to do, I guess. I guess he doesn't see it that often. They always hope to find it early, and in my case, I'm not sure yours, but mine was, I had found it like you early. I had a PSA of 14. The first, 2 years prior to 2017, I had a elevated PSA, and I went to another urologist, and he said, don't worry about it, and I didn't. And 2 years later, I go in for a physical, and my PSA in February, or actually it was the end of January 2017, my PSA was like 537, and then real quickly it went to 729 the next month, and I went straight on Lupron, and my PSA started to drop pretty drastically. The path that I took after Lupron, and dropping drastically, it dropped down to like 30 or 40, and then the next month it was down to like 20, but then shortly thereafter, because of a clinical trial that had represented at the time to do chemo, 6 rounds of docetaxel, that's kind of what I did. My PSA dropped farther. And then, during that time, I had started to think about, finding a genourinary medical oncologist. And with ANCAM and Rick's help, I kind of located Paul Korn at MD Anderson in Houston. And I do fly back and forth to consult with him in regards to the treatment path. Because I use a medical oncologist here locally that does kind of follow the standard, I guess, advanced prostate cancer protocols. And she doesn't like deviating. She likes going down what, they're taught to be the standard of care. And standard of care, in my mind, just means that, death is going to come. So for me, and I think for most guys, you have to kind of be your own advocate and reach out and find those things that work for you. And I understand wanting to go as natural as possible, and it's not like you've done doing so much of care like Lupron. You're probably going to have to stay on Lupron. Lupron does hold your testosterone level down, and that's something you should look for when you get your next labs, is kind of keep track of your T levels. If testosterone is what the case, if your testosterone is low, and I'm watching my testosterone level with my PSA, and they kind of run hand in hand. When my PSA goes up, my T levels go up. So I don't know. Do you know what your low testosterone level was?
It was under 7.
Under 7.
Yeah, 50 the last time I just did it when it was 200.
I'm sorry, I'm having a lot of trouble hearing. There's some
Yeah, we're having trouble hearing you.
Yeah, sometimes, Ken, you come in clear as a bell, and other times it fades. I'm just wondering if it's where you are in relation to if you're moving around at all with the iPad, but you were coming in clear as a bell before.
No, I'm sitting in one location, so I'm not sure why that is.
That's weird. Now you sound really great.
Well, I'll try to stay completely still and talk. Well, anyway,
Yeah.
Chris, I would recommend, trying to get your local med onc, in New Jersey, to set up an appointment with, MD Anderson in Houston, and just fly down and chat with them and find out, because it sounds a little unusual that you were on Lupron and your PSA went down, and now fairly quickly it's bouncing back up. Yeah, yours definitely is a different path than mine has taken. My PSA right now is rising. I've been on Lupron for about 2 years and 4 months, and Lupron had failed in December. And I haven't started the second line yet, which is Zytiga or one of those other drugs. Not sure which one I'm going to take, but Paul's real good at directing kind of traffic, giving direction to people on your team to find out what works best for you. So
I'm pretty good at being.
Say that again.
Oh, Rick had something to say.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that the big difference between the two of you, I think, other than obviously Chris starting his treatment a little bit, deferring his treatment, is that you kicked off with the chemotherapy, right? Ken, and you haven't really started a second line anti-androgen yet, although you're about to do that. Whereas Chris has been going the other route. And I know one of Chris's issues is quality of life. I mean, it's a big issue for him, quality of life. And, I think if I were in his shoes right now, I'd be looking very seriously at some sort of chemotherapy. And I just wanted to try and get some feedback from some of the guys on the call who have done chemotherapy to give Chris some idea whether in fact he should consider it, whether he should be intimidated, whether he should not be too intimidated. I mean, let me throw out the chemotherapy alternative. And Ken, do you want to say something about that, or would somebody else like to say something about that?
Well, I can say I'm not an anti-chemo person, and others are. So, the fact is that after doing chemo, and I'll grab my chart I think my PSA dropped about 20 points after doing chemo. So for me, I know there's been some clinical trials stating that doing second line prior to chemo is the better route today, but I kind of think chemo is my best route, even though I'm dealing with neuropathy in my feet. There's not really much else I can say because that's the route I took, but I wouldn't disagree, Rick, that I would think chemo would be the next step, especially since first and second line don't appear to be working that well.
Let me throw it open to other people who are on the call who would like to talk to Chris about his treatment and his treatment plan.
Don't all speak up at once.
Anybody else? Yeah.
Anyone else had chemo on the call?
Okay, I was speaking, but my stuff was on mute. This is Dennis.
Okay.
Yeah, similar to you, my initial diagnosis came as a shocker. My PSA was fairly low, but outside of the normal range. And went in and got the biopsy and came back with a Gleason 9. And then did the scans and found this stuff was metastasized to the spine and pelvic, femur, with about 5 metastases. And my oncologist was up on some of the latest stuff, and he said, this stuff is going to work better if we start it right away. And that was chemo with docetaxel, with the initial shot with Firmagon. Matter of fact, on my first visit to see him, he gave me the injections, the Firmagon. And we used that and worked with that for a while. The chemo was tough on me. At the time, they weren't doing the day after shot initially. And I ended up in the hospital. I had some blood clots in my lungs. My white blood cells had gone down, but they got on it right away. You know, after a week, I was out of there, resumed the rest of the chemo, and then we worked over to Lupron, and all of that brought it way down. PSA was way down, and then started to come back again. And at that point in time, we realized it was time for the second line anti-androgens, and the Zytiga was getting rave reviews at that time, and that's what he suggested. And they did that, and it worked like a charm. And you should know that the Zytiga as a second line, it works on other sources other than testosterone that the tumors use for fuel. So your Lupron shot is always going to be necessary because you're still going to produce from your testicles, your testosterone, and that's the only place that works. But there's other sources, and this Zytiga was after those other sources, and that was my issue, and it brought my PSA down to now. I've been cruising here for a while at less than 0.1, and yeah, there's side effects of this stuff, but I find it, you know, I'm 73 years old, and this all started about 3 years ago. So I think if you're a younger person in good physical condition without any other comorbidities, you know, heart disease or livers or stuff like that, you're probably going to tolerate it pretty well. The chemo, I don't seem to have any real lasting issues from the chemo that I would say are really quality of life type issues. It's the ADT is the primary source, and that's, you know, the hot flashes and so forth, and your sexual activity comes to a screeching halt pretty much with that. That's the biggest issues that I had with it. But the hot flashes, fatigue go along with that, and there's things you can do for that stuff. But that's my story.
Anybody else like to chip in and talk to Chris?
Chris, this is Len. Have you ever had gene analysis, mutation analysis?
You know, I was going to do it, talked about it with the doctor, special doctor with it all, and by the time we got done and looked at it all, we decided not to do it, so no.
I think the general consensus these days is, among competent medical oncologists anyway, is that anyone with advanced disease, high risk, like G8, G9, 10, should have genetic analysis. You may have something that's actionable, since you said, or Rick said, that quality of life is important to you and you may not be interested in chemotherapy. If you have an actionable mutation, there are certain drugs that have a safer side effect profile or a more mild side effect profile than chemotherapy drugs. I mean, other than that, I don't think you have that many options beyond chemotherapy. I mean, there are several, but I would urge you to have that done.
Yeah. So Chris, there are a couple of different types of testing that you can do. One is germline to see if you've inherited any cancer. I think we talked about this the other day. And if I recall, do you have cancer history? I should try to recall. No, that's what I thought. But the other is, and it's cheap. It's very cheap to do the germline, and you probably be covered anyway. And that's where normally you're going to finish up getting some genetic counseling. But the other type of testing is to test your tumor. And so they would take a biopsy from one of your lesions, probably in your hip or your shoulder, or maybe your femur. I mean, since you have lesions that are in fairly safe places to biopsy.
They did run pathology on my hip. I don't have the results right here in front of me, but they did.
Well, did they do genomic sequencing on that?
You know, that's a good question. I'm going to play ignorant on that one.
Okay. So, I mean, what they do is to send it away to specialized labs. Now, I'm not sure if MD Anderson Ken, does MD Anderson do their own genomic sequencing, or do they send it out?
No, they do it in-house.
Okay, so it's possible that they may have done that if they had the biopsy. That if they took the biopsy, but you know, if they did share it with us, let's take a look. Or they need to share that with certainly with somebody like Paul Korn. And see if you've got any what they call actionable mutations. Mm-hmm. Have you heard back on them? Has this doctor given you any feedback on whatever analysis they did?
Not one peep, you know. And I got to tell you what, I really didn't plug into the to the hip part of it. You know, I should have. You know, I'm learning. I mean, I've become a great advocate for myself in so many areas. But obviously, I got a long way to go here. You know? So,
well, yeah. I just want to say one thing, Chris. You know, the satellite offices, and we do have here in Phoenix, a satellite office in Gilbert for MD Anderson, but they do not communicate between the two. They communicate very poorly between the two places. Like MD Anderson Houston does not have a good open line of communication with MD Anderson in Gilbert, Arizona. Paul said when they first opened here, which was in about the time I got diagnosed in 2017, he made a special trip down to try to get, you know, a line of communication going, and it's real difficult. So I don't know that you'll have a good way to work through your local MD Anderson to get into Paul Korn in Houston. You may just have to call and set up an appointment and go there and see him.
Well, you know, I think that opens another whole ball of wax, because if you cannot get your MD Anderson doc to start cooperating with somebody like Korn, then if it were me, I'd be looking for a specialized genitourinary medical oncologist in the tri-state area. I'm assuming, are you in North Jersey, Chris?
Yeah, I'm in North Jersey. What's interesting is when I sat down with some woman, and I don't have her card right in front of me, but she was just supposed to be a specialist with the genomic testing and the whole 9 yards, and I had this whole appointment, and I was excited to do it. I thought, okay, you know, I'm going to find out some really interesting stuff about this. And she started asking family history and a lot of those other questions and everything. And then she pointed out to me about, you know, traits in the family and that type of stuff. But then she said to me a couple of curious things. You know, one of them was there's not a lot they're going to be able to do unless there's certain genes, you know, which are expressed, which I get that, you know. I mean, then you can be open for, I guess, immunotherapy, possibly. Len, is that what you're talking about or something?
Yes.
Right. You know, and a few other things. But she really didn't get much farther into that. And I'm a self-pay guy, which is fine. You know, I have a support group that helps me to pay my bills, you know, but I don't have a traditional insurance. And then I sat when I was done and I asked her for a breakdown of what would be done, how much it would cost, you know, and all of that. And I never got that. And I had to follow up 3 times. And the third time when I followed up, I got an answer to, okay, it's going to be a couple $1,000s from testing or something like that. And I got turned off. I got extremely turned off, and I got it in my head. that this testing really is only going to be important to tell my children if they're going to be.
No, let me stop you. Let me stop you because, first of all, it sounds like she was talking to you about germline testing.
Okay, all right.
And germline testing for you could do for as little as $200.
That's
interesting. With color.com. Now, there are better alternatives with Ambry, which she might have been talking about, or in-house, I don't know. The Ambry's more expensive. The Ambry could run from 500 to 2,000 because they've got so many different panels. But essentially for germline, you're going to cover the most important things for a couple of $100. What we're talking about is something different. We're talking about not family and traits and what you might pass on to your kids or wouldn't pass on to your kids. We're talking about what your tumor, how your tumor has mutated, and what type of mutations your own body might have created. And that is the somatic testing.
How do you spell that?
SOMATIC, somatic testing. And for that, again, I can tell you that whilst the sticker price is around $5,000, that we can help you get that probably for no more than about $500 through Foundation Medicine. Because they will subsidize, they subsidize everybody. If you don't have insurance, they have financial assistance. And because we have a very strong relationship with them, I'm pretty certain that we can get it done for you through Foundation Medicine. I mean, obviously I don't have any that sort of contact at MD Anderson, but if you're a self-pay guy, we can probably help you out through Foundation Medicine. But I think Len is right. This is why I mentioned a hip, because for the germline, it's either a blood test or a spit test. So for the color.com test, which is $199, you spit into a test tube and you send that off. For the somatic test, you need to get a biopsy. Now, the problem is that could be expensive for you if you self-pay. Because they've got to take a biopsy from a spot where is easily accessible and it's a procedure. So I cannot help you with that. I don't know what to say to you about that, but I can tell you that I think most guys on this call in your situation would be looking to see if they've got any somatic aberrations, mutations.
So
and I think it's important.
Why am I not being told this by my oncologist? I don't understand why I'm being led down this road. And I have to tell you, like I said, I'm going to plead ignorance. I've never had cancer before. I've never been down a lot of these things. I've learned so much in the last few years. I'm light years ahead of where I was. I am my own advocate in so many ways. But it's like anything else, until you know something, you don't know it, and the germline, that's all it was going to be, was a blood test, and that's all it was what we were talking about before. I mean, it's a whole different animal. I mean, geez, I could have very easily had it done, when I did the surgery on my freaking hip, I mean, I'm wondering.
Right.
Right. Obviously, this is
you know what?
Me to be on the call, so I get that.
If they took pathology when they did your hip, you should be able to use that slide, so they may not have to do it again.
Right. Okay.
So if they took pathology, but again, why are you not being told this? I can't answer that question. I can tell you that most of the guys that are on this call, we direct to doctors that we trust.
No, I get
as
that.
best as we can.
And
if you had come into us at the beginning and you'd asked us where to go, we probably would have sent you either to Mount Sinai or to Memorial Sloan Kettering.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there's probably 3 or 4 doctors that we know in the tri-state area that we would consider to be suitable for you. I would not go to a Memorial Sloan Kettering facility in Jersey. I'd go to Second Avenue because the people that do go to the satellite Memorial Sloan Kettering don't seem to be too happy, and then they can't switch back in. It's the same thing. They can't switch back over to Second Avenue, and it's a big problem. But, you know, we've got selected docs, and if you were seeing one of these docs, I think they would have said this to you. I can't tell you why your doc didn't, but I can tell you that she should have done. She should have at least reviewed with you. I mean, that's the state of the art today. They don't know whether you're eligible for immunotherapy until they do these tests.
I agree with that. I mean, and it's disturbing. I was originally diagnosed at NYU Langone. That's where I went because I was having trouble with local doctors here. I just wasn't, didn't feel they were up for it. But at the time when with the metastasis started, I chose to go to MD Anderson because it was more local and I was in some pain, and going back and forth was really hard to do.
Right. Well, I mean, the ideal solution for you is to go bang on your doctor's door, read her the Riot Act, which you have to do, and tell her, you know, I want you to work with Paul Korn in Houston. Because my feeling is that if you had Paul quarterbacking your treatment and you had a cooperative local medical oncologist, that's just as good as going in and seeing somebody at Mount Sinai or Memorial Sloan Kettering.
Okay.
I mean, he's such a great doc. He's compassionate, he's smart, he knows the field really well, but he's got to work with a local partner who's willing to work with him. As Ken said, you know, sometimes that's difficult. Look, we've got to move on because we got a bunch of people, and but I hope that we've given you a taste for some of the stuff we can talk to you about here.
Thank you, Len. Thank you, Ken. Thank you. Who's the other guy that we spoke with? Dennis. Thank you, Dennis.
Lots of luck, Chris.
I appreciate it. You guys armed me with quite a bit, so I may come across as being not paying attention, but believe me, I paid very good attention. Just like I said, I'm learning.
And if you want to, you know, if you want to speak to anybody on this call again, you let me know. I'll put you in touch with them directly.
All right. Well, thank you, Rick, too. So.
And you know, we really can help you. And not only does Ken know Paul Korn now very well, I have a relationship with Paul, and we have relationships with other doctors. But we've got to get you to a doctor, you've got to get a GU medical oncologist on your team. One way or the other, you've got to get a GU medical oncologist on your team.
I agree. Thank you.
Pleasure. Okay, let's move on to Paul Frieda, who was kind enough to yield to Cam from Australia last Tuesday. Paul, what's up?
Well, let me just start with a question. I feel like I need to get one of the top-notch GU med-oncs on my team, and but I'm wondering, do you have to fly to Houston or to New York City in order to see them for 20 minutes or a half hour, or is it possible to do a video doctor visit?
You know, it depends who it is. Look, when Jim Cameron, who you remember, Venice Jim, involved Paul Korn, he did it totally from Venice because he wasn't well enough to fly in. I think had he been well enough to fly in, he would have gone. But you know, he had that strange spindle cell cancer when it came back, and Paul was exceptionally accommodating. I think in a case like yours, probably what you would need to do would be to fly in one time to Houston and then to find a local oncologist who was willing to work with Paul. And that's what others have done.
You mean you wouldn't have to Paul a second time, but he would be conferring with your local GU Med-Onc?
Well, I think it would be more of a team. I mean, Ken, well, why don't you address that? That's more your experience.
Well, I can say, I think the FaceTime, at least for me, having a person that I know, I know what he looks like, I know his personality, and, I've been in sales for 30 years, so I like to have that connection. I like to know who I'm talking with. And I think when I send him an email, he replies quite promptly. It's because he knows who he's replying to. So I think it's advantageous for you too. And I know if it does take effort, and I don't know where you're flying from, but I would probably make the effort at least the first time. As far as return visits, it's not required as long as you have, like Rick said, a local Med-Onc. It doesn't need to be a GU Med-Onc, and some of the doctors get pretty high strung. They don't really want to be told what it is that they should be doing or what's acceptable, what isn't acceptable, and that's a problem. But you just have to find someone that will be okay taking direction.
Okay. Well, but in general, video doctor visits are not common at all right now. Is that right?
I would say not.
Yeah.
I think telemedicine is big.
Is there some
Go ahead.
Insurance won't cover it or something like that? Are there any structural obstacles to that?
Well, I think it depends on your policy. I mean, more and more there's telemedicine, but what I'm seeing more with the telemedicine tends to be where there is an HMO and you live in a remote place. I think it's harder probably to get the telemedicine covered when you're fit enough that you could fly in and you could travel, but it's up to each and every insurance company, and you'd have to check with whoever's carrying you. Isn't it Mutual of Omaha that carries your secondary?
Yes.
Yeah, so you'd have to check with Mutual of Omaha what their policy is. I mean, if you've got a good policy with them, you may well be covered for the visit if you take a visit to Houston. And for you, it's not that far. It's a very short flight from where you are over to Houston. But I think the key thing is finding somebody locally who's willing to cooperate. And some of the local doctors are very willing because they feel they're going to learn a lot, especially some of these general medical oncologists who don't have the opportunity to work with specialized GU Med-Oncs.
Right.
And the opportunity for them to work directly is very appealing. But then you get others with big egos who think they know everything when they don't.
Yeah. Well, okay. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, GU prostate cancer is specialized. And because it largely involves hormone therapies, some of these doctors just don't have that level of experience.
Yeah.
And so I think in your situation, yes, you do need a GU Med-Onc on your team.
Well,
you would find one either in Houston. I don't have a name for you, but we could probably work on looking for one. But I'm sure there's one or two GU Med-Oncs at Moffitt as well. I'm certain there must be.
The closest ones I can find are at Moffitt, which is about 3 hours away. That's not that bad. Anyway, the motivation for all this is that I haven't seen my GU Med-Onc for like 8 or 9 months now. Every time I go for my visit, they give me the nurse practitioner, you know, and I'm starting to get a little annoyed at that. And I got really annoyed because my recent blood test shows my testosterone is moving now. And so it's no longer undetectable. It's up at 40. And obviously it's going to go up again. And they told me because my PSA is still at 0.1 that I didn't need to see the doctor. And I just didn't like that. But the last time I looked, I can't find any other GU Medocs in South Florida. So the closest ones are in Tampa, which is about 3 hours away. So then I thought, you know, why can't you do a video visit with a doctor across the country? I mean, we're almost in the second quarter of the 21st century. I just don't get it.
Well, you know, I think because the insurance companies may balk, and some of the hospitals may also balk. I just don't know. I don't know. I can tell you that Paul Korn has done remote visits because I've been involved in them. I've sat in on the calls. It hasn't been a video call, but it's been a telephone call.
Right.
But I think that was a very special situation with a very rare type of cancer. And I think in a situation like yours, probably you're going to have to make a visit and then make it, you know, when you get there and see him for the first time, if that's who you want to involve. And if you don't want to involve him, then, you know, find a GU Med Onc at Marford. But I would not tolerate this nurse practitioner bullshit. Drives me round the bend. And I have a long history with it going back to UCSF. It's bullshit. And the only way that you get through it is by telling them that it's not acceptable to you. You want to see the doctor. And you tell them when you make the appointment.
Yeah.
And if they tell you no, you can't see the doctor, you say, well, then I have to find another doctor.
Well, that's
if you want to sit down and you want to see the doctor, you're your best advocate, and you have to insist on it.
Right. Being a tough guy is not easy to do, so. But I guess that's what I have to try to do next time. Yeah.
If you can't do it, then, you know, don't come back here and complain. And we say to you, well, did you ask for the doctor? And if you say no, we're going to say, well, you know, what you see is what you get. If you don't tell them that it's not acceptable, but you mentored guys in the UCSF system, Jay Curran will tell you plenty. And I tell them you don't want to see the nurse practitioner.
Right.
And if you speak up and you squeal loud enough, they'll make an appointment when they know the doctor's going to be there.
Right. Well, anyway, my next visit is not until July, and I wasn't real happy about that, but so.
Well, what's this issue with your testosterone rising?
Well, you know, I'm on the Lupron holiday, and so I haven't had a Lupron shot since last August, and this recent blood test finally showed the testosterone moving up. So I'm scheduled for another blood test in about 4 or 5 weeks, and maybe it's a little longer than that. Maybe it's 6 or 7, and I'm expecting it to go in higher. And the question is whether the PSA will start to move. But in other words, I'm going to be in another phase of my journey pretty soon, and I assume that I'm going to need to jump back on Lupron, and then but I'm not sure what happens after that.
Okay, well, Len, why don't you talk to? I mean, I don't know what you would want to talk to the doctor about. I mean, your testosterone is going to rise. Of course, it's going to rise. But the issue is, how does that affect your treatment? Len, you want to maybe do a little hand holding for Paul as to what to expect on the IHT?
Yeah, of course. You should be happy to see your testosterone rising, Paul. That's the whole point of going on drug holiday. And the fact that it's rising and yet you're still at 0.1, that's a pretty good sign. And if your T levels continue to rise and your PSA stays low, that's more good news. I don't
Right.
see an urgency right now. I mean, what's happening is what I imagine. If it were me, it would be what I was hoping for and expecting. I'm on drug holiday. I want to see my T level rise.
Why do you want to see your T levels rise?
Because it protects you against osteoporosis, protects your brain from cognitive deficit. It should provide you with a little more energy. You know, all the muscle tone and you know, all of that stuff, all that good stuff. So, you know, if you want to keep your T level down, if you're comfortable with that, you might as, I guess you could stay on Lupron.
It's not that I want to keep the T level down. What I'm thinking is when the T level starts to go up, that's the food for the cancer, and it's, you know, the cancer sooner or later going to come out of the doghouse. And you know,
why are you doing?
That's negativity.
Paul, why are you doing intermittent hormone therapy then?
Well, because you know, being on Lupron is not easy, and it's better to be.
Why is being on Lupron not easy?
It's got lots of side effects, and
why does it have a lot of side effects?
Well, because it's turning you into a woman, basically. It's castrating.
Because you have no testosterone, right? So
Right.
you come off the Lupron to allow your testosterone to rise. That's why you do that's exactly why you do it.
Well, my understanding is I come off the Lupron to, you know, make it easier for my body, and but sooner or later.
Why is it easy? But why is it easier for your body, Paul? Because your testosterone rises. That's the reason. Yeah, I mean, you're not getting the whole concept of intermittent hormone therapy. The reason people do intermittent hormone therapy is to allow their testosterone to return. And then they let it return until the PSA rises to a point where they're no longer comfortable, and they push the testosterone back down again. It's about managing your testosterone, and people want the testosterone back in their body. You only do it to make you feel better, because when you have testosterone back, you don't have all these issues that you had when you were on it.
So Rick, I just have a question. You know, tell a little bit more about your story. I'd love to go on a testosterone holiday or a Lupron holiday. So did your doctor like say, hey, let's try a little holiday, or did you push him for it or her for it, or what was your belief?
I brought up the subject, and he said after 3 years, it's been 3 years now, and that's not a bad idea. And so I said, well, let's do it. And he didn't resist in any way. And
what was your belief score? Was it a 9?
And I wasn't pushing it. We just said that it's something that could be done now. And so you know, what's going on with me is that I think of the testosterone as feeding the dog, and so I'm afraid of the testosterone, you know. So
I think you should be, I mean, happier at 1, happier T levels are going up, and once you find, or your doctor finds, and that's why he's saying, you know, you don't have to come back really until your T levels start to rise. I mean, I would keep an eye on it, but at the same time, it's doing exactly what you would hope that it would do.
Exactly.
So I
exactly.
Good for you. I hope that I'm at 3 years out.
And Ken, you know, there's a big difference in that Paul doesn't have identifiable metastasis. So
that's the part I didn't know.
There you go. Right. So and Len has metastasis, but in the lymph nodes. So there's no it's not identifiable in the bone. So, you know, when you're in that situation, you have a little more flexibility in your treatment. Right, Len?
Yeah, Paul, there's something called cancer dormancy. And you even though you may have some measurable PSA, it could be in a dormant state. And you don't know. You could go another year or 2 years with your T levels continuously rising and your PSA stays stable. That's possible. It's happened to me with a much higher T level than you have currently. So having your T level rise in and of itself is nothing to be afraid of. The fear or the concern will come when your PSA starts to rise rapidly. Then probably you want to go back on some form of therapy.
Right. Okay.
In the meantime, enjoy the holiday.
Right. So, what we always tell men that are considering IHT is sit down with your doctor and have a goal in terms of your PSA, and that you will stay off the LHRH drug until your PSA reaches a certain level. And that's what you should have with your doctor. Make an appointment with your current GU Med-Onc and say, Doc, let's talk when my PSA gets to whatever it is, 1.0, 2.0, 5.0. I mean, some doctors say 2.0, some doctors say 5.0. Len, you're the expert on this.
Yeah, well, my oncologist at Sloan Kettering allowed me to get up to 11 at one point before I went back. And Dr. O at Mount Sinai, when my PSA rose from 0.1 to 0.5, and I said, well, what do you think? Is it time to go back on therapy? And he said, well, let's wait a while, because sometimes I've seen guys stabilize at that level for a year or more. And that's exactly what happened to me. So.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It all depends on how comfortable the patient is with the rising PSA and the rising T level.
Yeah, right.
You don't want to have anxiety attacks about it. That's not good. But just understand that a rising T level does not automatically equate to a rising PSA, particularly in your case where you have no radiographically validated spread beyond your prostate. For all you know, you could be, I won't use the word clear, but you may have no evidence of disease. Did you have a prostatectomy or just radiation therapy or what?
Just a prostatectomy. I didn't do radiation. And the reason I didn't do radiation was that I don't know who the famous doctor is. His book said that if you come out of your prostatectomy and your first PSA is above 0.2, you're probably metastatic. So there's no point in doing radiation. And that was his opinion. And so I didn't do radiation.
You didn't do radiation because your PSA never went to 0.2.
No, it came right out of the gate. It was like 0.22.
Oh, okay. And then what happened?
Well, then I didn't do radiation, and then I waited until it got to about, I don't know, 2 or 3, and then we started Lupron therapy.
Oh, okay.
About 3.5 to get up, go from 0.2 to up around, I don't know, it was around 3 or 4 or something like that, and then I started Lupron therapy.
Okay. And you're a Gleason 8 or 9?
I'm an 8.
8.
Right.
Okay.
So Paul Frieda was of the opinion that because he'd read this doctor who said if your first reading is 0.2 or greater, there's not much point in doing radiation. I mean, if it was me, I would have done radiation with a 0.22, but Paul decided he didn't want to do it. And so he did not, let his PSA run up to about 2.5 and then started the Lupron for 3 years. And now he's on the holiday. So, there's a lot of options that are there for you, Paul. But I think that, as everybody says, enjoy this holiday. This is why you're doing it. Let the testosterone come back. you know, feel all the benefits of having testosterone in your body, and have a number in mind that you're going to resume your therapy at, or some type of therapy, and then maybe resume, or, you know, if your PSA gets to a certain level, when it gets to 1.0, for example, maybe you'll be able to see exactly where the cancer is on some scans.
Right.
So, but don't knock yourself out, because if you're going to knock yourself out and drive yourself crazy, you're better off staying on the hormone therapy.
Right.
I mean,
Well, and I see that there's other ways to look at it.
right, and this is just another form of active surveillance. This is active surveillance, but we often don't refer to it as such. But this is active surveillance for men who have recurrent disease.
Yeah.
And as you know, even with, you know, those men who do active surveillance when they first get diagnosed, I mean, a third of those men cannot take it, and they seek treatment. So if you feel that it's too much for you and you want to seek treatment, you go back on the hormone therapy.
Well, I was completely PSA could go up and then stabilize. I thought it would just be one dimensional. It would just go up and up and up and up. And the fact that it could plateau somewhere and give you 6 months or a year of survival is something I didn't know about. So.
Well, I think the issue is not so much that it's going to plateau, it's going to go up and up, but that you have a goal in mind, you have a benchmark in mind when you are going to go back on therapy. That's the important thing to me, if it were me.
Right.
Anyway, get an appointment with this doc. If you want to bring in another GU med on, bring him in, but, you know, don't put up with seeing the nurse practitioner. All right, we're going to move on. And since we're talking about, yeah, sorry, did somebody else want to say something?
No, I just said thank you for the information.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't really open that up. Did anybody else want to say anything on IHT to Paul?
I was just going to say, Paul, that you know, don't stress too much, because once you start the Lupron back at that point that Rick talks about, your PSA should go right back down. I tried it. It didn't work so much for me because I had a metastatic disease, but even though I only made it about 10 months, as soon as I got on the Lupron again, it was back down. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. Good grief. Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Let's go, since we're talking about nurse practitioners, let's hear what Jay Curran has to say, because he has plenty of experience seeing nurse practitioners instead of the doctor. Isn't that right, Jay? Jay?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah. I guess I saw your two favorite ones or something, but anyway, I guess I'm taking a holiday from them for right now.
Right. I only have one favorite one.
Okay.
But yes, I mean, you know, but Jay, I mean, we've talked a lot about it's not good to see the nurse practitioner, especially if you're at a decision point, correct?
Yeah.
So what's up with you? What's on your mind?
Well, I got a quick question about neuropathy. Is there any thing that you can do to ease it?
Who'd like to talk about neuropathy?
Just quickly, gabapentin does the job. At least it did for me.
Say it again, Ken.
You know, I was the nurse practitioner for Jerry Lucas's office that told me, not my medical oncologist, by the way.
Okay.
It was the nurse practitioner that told me to try gabapentin for neuropathy, and you can ask Lynn, and it works.
Yeah. 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 So gabapentin is a good drug, Jay, if you're suffering from neuropathy. It works for some people. It doesn't work for others. Any other suggestions for neuropathy? I mean, one thing that also may work for you, which is less intrusive in many ways, is acupuncture. And there's there's quite a good history of acupuncture, especially if you're using an acupuncturist who's associated with a cancer center, because they really know the points. So if you were to get an appointment at OSHA, for example, which you could do to see the acupuncturist at OSHA, you might get some good success. Where is your neuropathy, Jay?
Left arm and hands, left hand.
Okay. You know, it's really interesting because most people think about neuropathy as being as resulting from chemotherapy, which of course you have not done. But neuropathy is associated with LHRH drugs. And I found that out myself because I've suffered from neuropathy now for 7 or 8 years. And I'm certain it was from the LHRH drugs. And I get it in my feet, my toes and my heels, but usually only in the winter. As soon as it gets cold, I get a lot of neuropathic pain. So, it's quite likely that the extended time on your LHRH drug is what's causing you the issues.
And what was that center again? Is that the one in San Francisco on Divisionero Street?
Exactly. Caddy corner to the entrance to Mount Zion.
Okay.
And so yeah, I was. Any other thoughts? I mean, there are some other complementary medicines. I just can't remember what they are right now. I want to say that ginseng may be helpful, but I'm not certain. But there are other complementary medicines. Anybody got any other ideas on this? Okay. And what about your treatment? What's going on with your BAT?
Well, it's rising, and I tried to figure out my doubling time. It's about maybe 2 months, 2 or 3 months, and I'm up at 1,200 now. So
okay.
I'm in touch with Cornell.
Oh, good. Okay.
And I'm in touch with Germany.
What about Australia? So, I know you talked with Steve Ruckline, didn't you?
Yes, I did, and I think he had good luck. He's waiting on another PSA reading.
Right. Right. So what happened with Weill Cornell when you finally got hold of them?
They said there was a possibility that I would qualify, so I've got to send more medical records, and I think I'm learning how to do that with my cell phone. So I'll start on it tomorrow. but it took about, I'd say, 7 or 8 calls to get to that point where I could talk to a person that seemed to know what they were talking about.
Okay. And are you going to continue with the BAT, or are you done with it at this point?
I will continue. That was Dr. Agawa's idea, and he may have a slot with a phase 1 study that I can get in. You know, he put me in the queue, but of course you're not going to get as much dosage on a phase 1 study.
Right. And what's Agawa saying to you about chemotherapy?
Oh, I think he probably had suggested it.
Okay. Okay. This is, we should, for Chris O'Connor's education, Jay Curran has metastatic disease and is an ABC person, anything but chemo. So, you know, one of the issues is that if you haven't done chemo, it makes it harder to get into some of these trials because they require that you've done a second-line anti-androgen and chemotherapy beforehand. So that's just a little background. Okay, anybody want to say anything to Jay? Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Les and then to Jim Ward, and then to Jeff Dreyer. Okay. Oh, Jake. Geez, Jake. Oh, did Jake drop off? No. Okay, we're changing that. We're going to Jake right now. So before he falls asleep and he gets rid of us. You see, okay, Jake, what's up?
Okay, very quick. I got my blood test results today. As we knew was going to happen, it continued to go up. It went from 6.9 in April to 8.8 on 15 May. So I got a call from my oncologist, and she scheduled me for a PET scan, PET CT. So, and then I called the PET CT people, and I said, "What kind of PET CT do you give?" And she goes, "Oh, we do the sugar fluoride thing." And I said, "No, that's the same one that you did 6 years ago when I found out I had prostate, 7 years ago when I found out I had metastatic cancer in the first place." He goes, "Well, we do have Axamin." And I said, "Okay, well, let's do Axamin." So I do listen to you. I know it's not G68 PSMA or anything like that, but that's not available in this around this area, at least in my driving range. So Axamin is what I'm going to get. I don't know when I'm going to get it. It'll probably be in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Somebody mentioned anxiety attacks. Well, I'm already having anxiety attacks about just getting there. Not getting there and then sitting inside that stupid tube. But I am going to do it. So Len and Rick and Dennis, all you guys who've been coaching me.
It's not bad. It's not bad. You can do it, Jake.
I know.
Just close your eyes, Jake.
Well, I just believe it or not, I understand that the Axamin only takes about half an hour.
Yeah, even less, 20 minutes.
And they don't. Before I had to wait like an hour. I had to drink a gallon of this sugary crap, and then I had to wait for an hour for the injection to circulate. But now I understand the Axamin, they give it to you on the table, and within 5 minutes they start to scan. Is that right, Len?
Well, they have to do it within about 20 minutes, I believe. But
okay.
Yeah, that's the way they did mine like that. It was very. They didn't give me the injection until I was on the table.
Right. because I was checking it out again today, and that's what I understand. So I made it.
Oh yeah, Jake, that's right. I'm sorry. I was thinking they have to prepare it about 20 minutes before they're going to put you on the table and inject you. But once you're on the table, yes, they inject you right away. And listen, ask them if they can skip the CT does head to pelvis, I think, or knees. Ask them if they can skip the head so you don't have to put your head in the tunnel. Because it's very rare that you have mets to the scalp.
Right. Okay.
Well, it's rarer. Not very rare, but rarer.
I know Chris mentioned that he has it.
Yeah, he did.
So it's not very rare. It's less. But if it's a real issue with you, and if they were to see that you had mets all the way up your spine, then maybe you'd have to go back for a second one to see if it was in your scalp as well. But if you don't have any involvement in the top, at the top of your spine, it's probably less likely you do in your head. But yeah, there's some negotiating you can do here, Jake.
Well, maybe I can just get him to do the CT of my head, because that goes pretty fast. You're kind of in and out. It's just sitting inside the tube that bothers me. The CT itself is not bad. It's the tube of the PET that takes a long time.
Right.
But yeah, thank you. That's a good suggestion, and I might just do that.
Keep us posted, and then we'll find out. She's not ready to switch you to the abiraterone, huh?
I think she's going to wait until she sees the PET scan.
Okay.
But I think, Rick, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think when Rick was laughing, I was laughing because I was surprised they were offering you the FDG when they had Axumin. Axumin is much better than FDG.
Well, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, that tells you something about my oncologist. She asked for that, and I said no. That's not right.
She needs to hit books.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I've been telling her all along what I want to do. Based on you guys' suggestions, and I've been kind of running my own show all along. And this was another good example.
All right. We don't have a lot of. He said much of what we needed to say over the last 3. Yeah.
So leave me alone for the next month or two.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for telling it. You could have kept it to yourself. I know.
No, I figured you'd want to know, and I figured you'd be proud of me. So.
We are proud of you, and we're very proud that you're willing to do it, that you're willing to go out the house and get it done. And how far a drive is it, Jake?
It's probably about 15, 16 miles.
Okay.
I did it once before. It wasn't too bad. I got lost on the way back, and that freaked me out. But
okay.
And I do have a friend who offered to take me if I want.
Well, there's a concept.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. First of all, I got to get the appointment. They scheduled me for the 30th originally for the FDG, and now they said they had to talk to the lady, some lady about the Axumin, because I think, like Len says, it's a question of ordering it and having it on hand and all that stuff. So I don't know what the date will be yet. Hopefully, I'll find out in the next year.
Okay. I just noticed that Foodie came on and he left, Len. Did you see that?
I was going to mention to you that he probably wanted to talk.
Yeah, well, he does, but he has to come, I can't just put people in when they come on for a couple of minutes, I'm afraid. They've got to, everybody has a turn. Okay. Anybody want to say anything to Jake about having the courage to get out the house?
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
This is Jake. This is Jake Curran.
Hi, Jay.
Can they? Rick would know better than I, but I think I've heard that they can give you a little muscle relaxant or some light thing like Prozac or something like that. Won't last too long. Give it to you before you go.
Yeah, I can take a Xanax and that'll help me get there. But I don't know how long it'll get me through the tube or not.
Okay.
If they give you a sedative or whatever, you have to have somebody drive you home.
Another thing you can do in your mind is you can think of what went on in your first grade, second grade, third grade, stuff like that. Something that is a long trail of something.
That's an idea.
Hey, Jake, when I get there Friday, I'll let you take the Harley around the block where you'll feel better.
Oh yeah. And then I'll be in good shape. I'll be dead. I won't have to go to the scan. I'll be dead. But thank you.
Am I hearing that you're getting a visit from Mr. Jackson?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Mr. Jackson and Mrs. Jackson are going to visit me. They said only for about a half an hour, an hour.
Fantastic.
Yeah, they're going to be in the. They're going to be in the area. They're going to be Rolling Thunder.
All right. Okay. I love that. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
Pictures. We want pictures. Okay.
Okay.
No. We'll put selfies. We want a selfie of you and the Jacksons, and we'll stick it in the blog. Definitely. Please.
Do you have a camera with a camera? Do you have a phone with a camera, Rich?
Yes, we can work something out.
We can work that out. Okay.
We
Comb your hair.
can't wait. Fantastic.
Comb your hair for the picture, Rich. And I'll try to comb.
Fantastic. All right. Delighted. I'm delighted to hear that. Okay, so let's move along. Les, and then Jim Ward, and then Jeff. And Foodie is with us. He's gone. He was with us. I'll send him a note later. We'll send him Len, send Foodie a text and tell him to get back on the call because we want to hear from him, please.
Okay, I think I have the number. I'll check.
If not, I'll put it in the chat window for you in a second. That's just to you.
Rick, did you touch base with Jeff Dwyer? Did you ask him if he wanted to talk?
Yeah, no, Jeff does want to talk. He's got that issue that's in between speaking freely and this call.
Oh, okay, right.
That hopefully we'll have some time for. Les, what's up with you?
I just wanted to mention just before this meeting, I was on the internet and there was this link to a video where a cure for cancer, and it was where you use tap water and freeze it in thought 3 times, and that's supposed to do something for you. That's supposed to cure cancer. Where do they come up with this stuff?
Mexico.
That's
oh boy. I don't know. I do not know. But I did talk to somebody who told me they lost their mother. And part of that, this was many years ago, and part of their mother's treatment was coffee enemas. So I think that's the first person I've ever actually spoken to where I heard firsthand. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't know, Les. I would say that if you're going to try it, don't cancel your appointment with your doctor, your regular doctor.
Okay, well, that's it. Go ahead.
Well, that's no. I mean, I think it's an interesting. I don't know, Chris. I mean, let me ask Chris. Chris, I mean, you really looked into alternatives. If somebody said to you, freeze and unfreeze water 3 times, and what would you think?
I'd say I'm better off running the bottle 3 times to see the genie come out. You gotta have common sense when you walk through this shit. I mean, it's like somebody saying drink your own urine and it'll cure you. There's a lot of shit out there. You know, you gotta kind of walk through it. It's easy for anybody to say anything. But I will say it's a fine line walking a natural route. You know, there are things out there that, you know, people may laugh at a little bit that may be a little more effective than you realize. But I mean, that one wouldn't pass the fucking test. You know.
Well said, Chris.
Thanks.
Oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Okay. Anything else for you, Les?
No, that's more than enough.
Okay. Okay, Jim Ward, give us a quick update on how you're doing, and you have a question for us.
I do. Thanks, Rick. So basically, I've been on the ADT since early January. So I'm just coming up, right at about a little over 4 months. And I think it's been going well because it started out at 272 just before that first Lupron injection. And most recently, the PSA is down to 0.94. And that was after starting Zytiga in March. So I think that's all generally good. I know it's easy to start obsessing about the numbers. So I won't come back to the number. I have a question about the numbers, but I won't come back to that unless there's some extra time. The bigger question I have is, and I credit Ken for tipping me off on this, but there's this checkpoint immunotherapy trial that they're trying to put together at UCSF. I'm assuming, Rick, you might know about that.
I heard about it, and I looked at it very briefly, or saw it very briefly, and then I saw it again mentioned by Mike Scott on PCI, on Prostate Cancer International this week, but I don't know the trial. I think it's something that Larry Fong is doing.
Yeah, that's correct. So, I guess according to the article, just got linked to an article that says it is Fong and another guy named O, who I think is kind of his disciple. Right. But anyway, the article ends by saying,
sorry, Jim, isn't that's the SD101, right? It's the checkpoint inhibitor with SD101?
Yes, it is.
Right, okay.
That's right. So the article ends by saying we have to start these immunotherapies within 3 months of initiating Lupron. Okay, so I started Lupron on January 8th, so I'm about a month past that. And so meanwhile, ever since I got tipped off about this trial, I tried to call them last week, left a voice message. Some guy calls me back and leaves me a message and says, doesn't leave his name or anything, and says, "Oh, call back." And he says he's from the hematology department. So it seems like it's next to impossible to reach anybody there. I asked my GU oncologist at the University of Kansas if he could help make a connection, because I guess he's acquainted with Dr. Fong. So I don't want to be too pushy or obnoxious about it, but I already feel like I'm maybe past one of their criteria, being more than 3 months since starting Lupron, and I just don't know. Is there some way to cut through the red tape? Because every time I call, it just you go to a voicemail message and that's that. And I don't want to leave a bunch a bunch of repeat messages and seem obnoxious about it. So
are you speaking to the trial coordinator, or are you just calling a number?
I'm calling the number that they gave a number in the article, and that number just, I don't think it's the trial coordinator. It's like it's a general number that you can kind of punch your way through to different things, but I'm just not sure who I'm supposed to be calling. I think Ken's trying to kind of help out with that, because you may have a lead on a number.
Jim, did you go to clinicaltrials.gov?
No.
Try clinicaltrials.gov. Clinical trials is one word. .gov, G-O-V. And if you know the number of the trial, there should be some phone numbers on there.
Okay. So
yeah.
I'm on the site, and the person you want to call, there are two contacts. Do you have a pen there?
I sure do.
Okay. So either Joanne Otani, Joanne with an E, Joanne Otani, O-T-A-N-I, nurse practitioner, 415-502-2756.
Okay.
And her email is joanne.otani@ucsf.edu.
ucsf.edu.
Yeah. And the other is Julie, Julie, and then it's McCluggage. I'll spell it for you. It's capital M, small c, capital C, and then the word luggage. C-L-U-G-G-A-G-E. McCluggage.
Okay.
She's an RN. Her number is 415-514-8133.
Okay.
And her email is julie.mccluggage@ucsf.edu.
Okay, great. So you just went to the UCSF website?
Right. I went to the UCSF website. No, I went to clinicaltrials.gov.
Oh, okay.
And I put in prostate cancer, and then I put in pembrolizumab and SD101, and the trial comes right up. The trial identifier number is NCT 03007732.
NCT 03007732.
Right. You can, if you go to clinicaltrials.gov and you put that number in, it'll come right up for you.
Okay.
And it is a trial that Larry's doing. And why don't you see what you get? I'm happy to send Larry a note and tell him we've got a candidate, but you're maybe a month overdue. Would he consider you? But why don't you see? You can use, when you talk to the trial coordinators, you can use my name. They won't know me, but Larry certainly knows me.
That would be great. I mean, I will reach out to I'll reach out to Julie and Joanne, and then Rick, if you're game to send an email to Dr. Fong, I certainly welcome that.
Well, I'm happy to do it, but get back to me and see what the trial coordinators say first.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So Julie and Joanne, they are the trial coordinators.
Yeah, they're listed as the. Let me just make sure. They're listed as the contacts, so they would be the trial coordinators, I'm sure.
Okay. Well, this is great, and thank you so much for helping me cut through the red tape.
Okay, and definitely we can I mean, we know Larry really, really well. He's on our advisory board, and I have no problem in sending him a note. But first of all, let's see where we go and see what they say, and if they'll consider you and what have you. And then once we know better, then I can send him a note and tell him you're one of our guys.
Okay, wonderful. I really appreciate it.
What's your question about your numbers, Jim?
Basically, I guess it's I look at the numbers and I worry that maybe I'm plateauing. And so just to kind of walk through them really quickly. So when I started Lupron, I was at, just before starting, I was at 272. Basically 1 month after starting, it was down to 13.49. A little bit more than a month after that, it was 2.9. And then about a month later, it was 1.0, and that was on April 23rd. And I had started Zytiga in the middle of March. So the most recent reading was from May 16th. So just last week, and it had gone from 1 to 0.94. So you had these big, substantial drops, over 4 months, and then the last one, it was 1.0 down to 0.94. And I don't know, maybe I shouldn't read too much into it, but it's, when you're used to, when you've been getting, drops of, multiples of, 20 times and 5 times, and, I know it's going to slow down, but maybe, I don't know. I don't have a good enough sense of the numbers to really understand. And I'll just say the testosterone is, was as low as 15 in February and 15 in March, and then it was 22 in April and 25, the last time, the last one. So I don't know if that, I'm not sure how significant that is either. But anyway, it's just be obsessing about PSA and wanting it to continue to have these big drops, but it seems like it's not as dramatic now.
So who on the call would like to address that? Most of you guys have looked at that, especially at the beginning of your treatment when your PSA has come down from large numbers. Who can give some words of advice and support to Jim?
Jim, did you have a prostatectomy?
No.
So you still have your prostate.
I do. It's metastasized, I guess, technically, because it's in the lymph nodes. But no, I haven't had a prostatectomy, and there probably isn't going to be time. But I'll just mention it, and then we can leave it. But yeah, the most recent visit with my radiology oncologist, who was set to start radiation in June, suggested there's a trial out there where at MD Anderson where you get ADT and then you either get a prostatectomy or radiation. And I was telling Ken, I'm like, wait a minute, why are you throwing this at me now? But anyway, yes, I still have my prostate. Okay, well then,
chances are your PSA will never get down to below 0.1. 0.9 on Lupron is pretty damn good. That's good to hear. I wouldn't be overly concerned. It's certainly being controlled right now. Zytiga didn't seem like it made much of a difference, though, did it?
No, not really. I mean, yeah, I kind of thought it would do more. And I had a little bit of as a side note, I had some slightly elevated liver enzymes, and then they sort of came back down. I don't know what caused that. I'm sure nobody really knows, except that it happens to some people. But anyway, no, staying focused on the PSA, I guess that makes sense. If you still have your prostate, you can only expect it to go so low.
Well, sometimes sometimes switching from Zytiga to Xtandi might be of benefit too.
But Jake, I mean, the Zytiga has brought the PSA down from around 13.7 to 0.94. I would say it's doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, plus, hey, Jim, Ken Anderson, I'd give it a couple more months. You know, I would honestly, I don't think it's at the bottom. It does not move as much when you get down in the low numbers, but you'll still, I think, give it a couple more months. I wouldn't be freaking out just yet. No one even freak out because it's, you know, once you do still have your prostate, once you radiate your prostate, which is basically taking the gland without actually operating and removing it, you're going to take it and pretty much burn the bugger to death. So, and it's lower your PSA. So, and it's lower your PSA. I mean, I'd give it a couple of months, do the radiation, and see where it settles in at.
All right, that sounds good. I'll stop stressing about it.
Yeah. I mean, you know, from those words, stressing out, and he's telling you don't stress out. So it comes with a lot of weight. The advice from Mr. Anderson, I want to tell you.
Yeah, no, I'm going to give it a lot of weight.
But seriously, I mean, the Zytiga bringing you down from 13.9 to 0.94 in a matter of a couple of months is good.
Yeah, that is. I missed 13.4. I thought it was only on the Lupron that it brought it down. my apologies.
It was 13.49 before I started the Zytiga a month later, and then yes, it's now down to 0.94. So I mean, how much does Zytiga have to do with that? I have no idea, I guess, but I'm sure it had something to do with it.
Oh yeah,
I had a lot to do with it.
Yeah. So you know, I think you're doing great. You know, debulking the tumor with radiation is a real good idea. However you choose to do it. And I forgot you're also working with Paul Korn, are you not?
Yeah, I am, and I meant to speak up to I think it was Chris, right?
Yes.
But I only had the initial consult with him, and obviously Ken has had a lot more, has worked a lot more with him. But I meant to just echo that, you know, I think he's a great guy, and he did, he's consulted with my GU oncologist at KU, is an extremely humble guy, and so there's no ego there. So that's I think I don't ever anticipate there's going to be a problem there. So, but yeah, he is great. I mean, you guys said he would be, and of course, he is. So, and I'm actually going to go. Part of the update I'll say is I asked him to hook me up with a radiology oncologist at MD Anderson, essentially just try to get a second opinion. And so I'm going to go see somebody the day after Memorial Day. It's a Dr. Hoffman, female.
Right.
And, we'll see what she has to say, because I realize that's a whole other conversation for another time. But I'm basically supposed to start radiation in June. And and we'll see how it goes. But I guess again, I can't resist just asking, like, I get this trial thrown at me about either you're doing ADT and you either get surgery or you get radiation, and I'm just why are you throwing this at me when pretty much we've got a plan here, which is to do radiation. And I know it's probably a big topic, and you can just tell me we don't have time to get into it. But I'm really struggling with. Well, wait a minute. Like now I have a door A and a door B, and we've been so focused on door B, which is the radiation. It's like, well, okay, I don't even know the first thing about.
Let me just say one thing on that, and I do want to move on because I want to talk to Richard Foodie, and we want to talk to Jeff quickly. But if it were me, I would never. I wouldn't even consider surgery for debulking. I would do the radiation. Now, some people do. Carl Foreman did it recently in a trial, but his disease came back pretty quickly, and I think he's I can't remember if he's doing radiation or he isn't doing radiation, but I just don't see the point of doing surgery with all the side effects that you're going to incur. Not that you're not going to incur side effects with radiation, but I think they're more manageable and more benign. And, you know, and you've been talking to Ken, and Ken debulked with radiation. I would not debulk with surgery. I don't get it.
Well,
I
really appreciate that. And I think Ken shared the same sentiment. So, you know, I figured, hey, let's open it up. Let's see if there's somebody who's going to make a, you know, counter argument. But that hearing that from Ken and hearing that from you, Rick, is again, I put a lot of stock in that, and I think I'm just going to stay the course. I'm just going to do the radiation and hope for the best.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you're going to debulk with the radiation, to me makes the most sense. That's certainly what I would be doing. And we tried to talk Carl into doing the debulking with the radiation. Anyway.
Well, thank you so much.
But if you want to talk about it some more, come back on next week. But please, and you know, we can bat it around some more with pleasure.
All right, sounds good. Sounds good, really good.
Okay. Jeff, tell us at least what the topic is, because we all want to know what it is that's on your mind. Are you there? Mr. Dreyer, are you with us? I see your microphone's on, but we don't hear you. Did you step away? I guess you must have stepped away. Okay, well, we'll come back to you. But Richard, tell us how you're doing in your trial and where you are.
Okay. Hi, guys. Hi, Rick. Ren.
Hi, Richard.
So, just a quick recap. Diagnosed in 2012. I got a second opinion at Memorial Sloan Kettering in 2013, and I found that I was stage 4 with bone mets, and I still have my prostate gland. So I have a hormone deprivation therapy, Lupron, and then bicalutamide for 1.5 years, and that failed. And for line 2, I went on to Xtandi for 4 years, and then last fall, in October, they noticed that my PSA was in a doubling pace, and they concluded that the Xtandi was beginning to fail. So they did a CT scan in November, and they found that I had developed a new mass outside of the prostate gland. It was small, but I had a biopsy December 31st, great way to start the new year, and they found that it was an aggressive cancer. Fortunately for me, MSK, Dr. Rathkoff was doing a clinical trial of chemotherapy plus medication. The chemo is cabazitaxel, the medication is Zytiga, and with the addition of prednisone. So I was very lucky, and then I got into the combination trial of the cabazitaxel plus the Zytiga, and I started that January 15th. I'd never had chemo before, and I was very lucky, I think, because my body handled it well. Rick, long ago when I first met him, told me, Richard, I've got one word for you: exercise, exercise, exercise. So I became an exercise prostate cancer guy as a result of Rick, and so I'm in pretty good shape. And so my body was handling the chemo well, there were sometimes it wasn't so good, but I never really got sick, but I get like headaches 24/7 and things like that. But anyhow, the chemo was every 3 weeks. The Zytiga was every day with the prednisone. April 5th, I had another CT scan and bone scan and blood work, and they found that that new mass that they discovered in December was gone. My PSA had decreased about 70%, and the old I look at it as the new cancer and the old cancer. So the new cancer was gone, the old cancer was unchanged, and there was some indication that there were some areas where it appeared to be getting smaller. So it was having an effect on the old cancer as well. It's a 7-month trial. I finish in mid-June. May 24th, I have my next round, or actually Friday, I have my next round of the CT scan and bone scan and the blood work and another treatment, my MSK day. And so I look forward to finding out what's happening inside my body next. I feel good. There is a side effect, though, that started to happen after January, and that is that I started to rapidly gain weight. I've gained over 14 pounds, and some of the guys who are on the hormone deprivation therapy, one of the side effects for me was I developed a pooch. That's what Dr. Rathkoff called my little belly that began with the Lupron. And so now my pooch has gotten large, and I've got this a large belly, and I developed shortness of breath. And the MDs aren't. I have a pulmonary doctor now too. Excuse me. They're not clear about about what's causing the shortness of breath. The pulmonary doc thinks that because of the growth of my belly, primarily due to the prednisone, that they feel that it's putting pressure on my lungs, and that's impeding good breathing. They've tested my heart, they've tested my lungs, and functionally the heart's good, the lungs are good, but there's just something that's inhibiting my lungs from breathing well. So I'll be using an oxygen machine. We just finished the paperwork today, so I'll have that oxygen machine within 2 weeks, and they'll want me to use that when I'm active, out on the street walking around. The pulmonary doctor cleared me for exercising again if I use the oxygen machine, and Donna Wilson has agreed to take me in with the oxygen machine for the PEX fitness class for men at MSK, and they'll monitor my oxygen while I'm there. But so I'm really looking forward to that. But it's a little difficult because I can walk up the street, and I live in New York City, so you do a lot of walking, and I can reach the end of the block and I'm out of breath. And so I've been doing breathing exercises as well, and the breathing exercises have helped, and I do experience some improvement. But so other than that, so the trial is working. It seems to manage the cancer. At stage 4, I'll never be cured, but they can manage the progression of the cancer, and so they can stop it or slow it down. And that seems to be where we're at now. But the side effect of the shortness of breath it's a little disconcerting, but I believe that my doctors gave me a very thorough examination, and my pulmonary doc talks with Dr. Rathkoff, so it's a team effort. And the clinical research nurse is also involved in this discussion too. So there's a very good collaboration, and about
Richard,
what's going on. So anyhow, that's it.
I recall that you had some pulmonary issues last year, I think. Did you not?
As an ex-smoker, I have COPD, but that never really I mean, I was exercising much more regularly then than I am now, but I was able to play tennis. I was able to be on the dragon boat team, and it wasn't a it. I think the cardio exercise that I was doing every week was keeping my lungs better. In fact, the pulmonary function test that I took last year, as a result of the exercise, I went from severe to moderate. So the exercise did improve my lung function.
Right, and then I also have a note that back in July 17, there was some suspicious lung nodules.
Yeah, and they haven't grown. In fact, in April, they found that a couple of them are getting smaller. So they're in an awkward spot. Dr. Rathkoff wanted to do a biopsy, but Dr. Kaplan, the lung doctor or pulmonary doctor, didn't want to take the risk, because when you're doing a biopsy of something in the lung, there's a risk of collapsing the lung, and so they're just monitoring it with the CT scans, and so the good news is that they haven't increased in quantity, and they have not increased in size, and if anything, they're getting slightly smaller. So, but they don't, they don't think it's an aggressive cancer, so they're just keeping an eye out.
So you're doing the PEX class. Sounds like you've had to give up.
I'm sorry, I lost your.
It sounds like you've had to. It sounds like you've had to give up your dragon boat training for a while.
Yeah, the PEX class and dragon boat training. So pretty much since December.
Okay. Okay.
But I'm looking forward to getting back into it. And
okay.
So.
God bless you. So, any questions for Rich on the trial, on the training, on the short? Any comments on the shortness of breath? Anybody else faced with this?
I've got a comment. This is Paul Frieda. I've had problems with shortness of breath and weight gain, and I went through all kind of tests with the pulmonary doctor and everything, and after all of it, I realized finally, at least in my case, if you just have a lot of weight and then you start walking around really fast, you're going to be out of breath. I mean, try to imagine you picked up a 16-pound bowling ball and then tried to walk to 100 yards at moderate speed. You're going to be out of breath when you get there, because it's heavy, and your body's working harder than it's used to working. So it may be just the weight gain that's causing the shortness of breath.
Yeah. I should be like 158, 160, and I'm up like 179, and
20 pounds, right?
Yeah, that's a lot, and it's right in my belly. It's not in my legs, my arms, or anyplace else. It's just right on the belly.
Right, that's even worse. I mean, try imagine strapping a bowling ball to your belly and then trying to walk 100 yards, and why should you be surprised that you're out of breath?
Yeah.
So, my situation more extreme. I put on I'm like about 50 pounds overweight, and it never occurred to me it's just the weight that's making me out of breath.
So, Richard, I do have a pretty serious comment on this, though. It sounds like they're putting this down to the prednisone. Is that correct?
Well, the weight gain, they suspect that the weight gain is a result of the prednisone.
Okay.
But nobody knows for sure.
Right. So, I got to say this to you, and I think it's a discussion that you got to have with Dr. Rathkoff, is that maybe you are better and it's going to mess up the trial, but maybe you're better off on enzalutamide than you are, or Alida, apalutamide, than you are on the Zytiga. Because if you're on apalutamide, well, you can't be on the enzalutamide, obviously, because it stopped working. But maybe you're better off on apalutamide, seeing if that works for you, rather than the Zytiga, because you don't have to take the prednisone. I don't know. I mean, it's certainly a discussion as to whether you could go back onto one of the other drugs or stop taking the Zytiga altogether.
Yeah,
and not go on to anything else. In other words, just be on the cabazitaxel and see how you do with that. And then when you're ready to come back on, you come back on and trying something like Alida or darolutamide if it's available.
Yeah, the conversation started. That conversation started almost 3 weeks ago, and they were even willing to cut back the prednisone to half. But I said, the trial's over about June 14th, I think it is. So I've got Friday's treatment and then the June treatment, and at that point the trial's done. So for the integrity of the trial, I'm willing to, now that I have clearance to exercise with the oxygen, I'm willing to continue the trial as is, and then the results will determine what my next treatment is going to be anyhow. I don't know what that's going to be.
Right. But it may well be that they have some flexibility with the amount of the prednisone dose anyway in the trial. You may not damage the integrity of the trial if you lower your prednisone dose.
No. Well, I have my follow-up on Friday, so I'll bring that up again.
Well, why? Talk to them about lowering. The thing is, with the prednisone, you have to come off of it very slowly anyway. So you've got to wean off of that prednisone very, very carefully. You can't just stop taking prednisone.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a discussion. I mean, if it, and don't be a hero. I mean, if you need to reduce the prednisone dose, consider reducing the prednisone dose.
Yeah.
Len, what's your input on this?
Yes, I agree. Certainly worth having a discussion with Dana Rothkopf. But Richard, I'm just curious. It's a little off topic, and I just need a yes or no answer for the moment because I know it's late. Did you happen to go to the US2 Thursday night meeting with Susan Slovan talking about cardiovascular risk of ADT?
No.
Okay. Well, in that case, I'll just say thanks for coming on and sharing your story, and good luck, and come on back when the trial's over. And let's do.
Yeah, I will. Thank you.
Anyone else want to say anything to Rich? Okay, and so let us. We're running late, but at least Jeff Dreyer, is your microphone now working? No. Okay. Well, that solves the problem. We'll have to get Jeff's microphone work. It shows it's working, but we can't hear him. We've got to get Jeff's microphone working at least before the next Speaking Freely call. And or maybe on the next call, Jeff will call in and we'll talk about his issue. Sorry we couldn't get to you. So we're 15 minutes over, but we got through an awful lot of stuff today. I wish you all a very good Memorial Day. Next Monday, we'll be meeting next Tuesday, the 28th. I think that's probably about it. Jeff has written back. Sounds good. No problem. Thank you, Jeff. Okay. We'll get you in early. We'll give you priority. We do that, right, Mr. Frieda? He was supposed to say right, but I think we may have lost Paul as well. All right, so I'll say goodnight to everybody, and we'll talk to you next week. Okay, bye-bye.
All right. Good night.
Rick.
Good night.